A man stands at the edge of a harvested field. The sweat of a long day, drying cold on his skin. And it does carry that weight. But if you look closer at the physical crowd surrounding Jesus that day, but the Father does not care about his reputation. He shamed himself to run down a dirt road for the rebel. He shames himself now to walk into the dark field for the rule keeper. He crosses the courtyard. He leaves the light. He steps into the shadow where his eldest son is seething. The older brother works. He earns. He measures. He looks at the Father's house as a strict transaction. He believes every drop of sweat buys him a fraction of control, and his brother just bypassed the entire system. The son unleashes his venom. He spits out his resume. He lists his years of perfect, unbroken slavery. He refuses to even say the younger boy's name. In the text, he just spits out the phrase, "This son of yours." He distances himself from the bloodline. He insulates himself from the grace. The older brother is not defending justice. He is demanding a wage. He looks at the father with cold, calculating eyes. He waits for the patriarch to validate his anger. He waits for the ledger to be opened and the unearned party to be shut down. The father does not yell. He does not strike the boy across the face, even though the surrounding culture would absolutely demand it. At the cultural bomb he drops in the final act, you start to see something the comfort reading completely misses. He does not pull rank and command him to walk inside under threat of exile. The wind cuts across the courtyard. The father looks at the calloused hands and the clenched fists of his compliant, furious son. Both boys broke the father's heart. Both boys humiliated him in public. Both boys loved the things the father owned more than the father himself. And the father goes out into the dirt for both of them. But to reach the older brother, the patriarch has to do something even more shocking than leaving the party. He has to change his vocabulary. The patriarch stands in the dirt, absorbing the venom of his eldest son. The music from the feast pulses behind the thick wooden doors. But out here, the air is cold and silent. Luke chapter 15, verse 28. The older brother explicitly refuses to go in, and the text describes exactly what the father does next to bridge the gap. The English translations usually soften the impact of this moment. They say the father entreated him or pleaded with him. The word Luke uses is the Greek parakalai. It is a compound of two words, para, meaning alongside, and kaleo, meaning to call. It appears over 100 times in the New Testament. This is not a story about how to come home. It is a devastating diagnosis of the people who never left. And its range of meaning is stunning. It is the exact same word a desperately sick leper uses in Mark chapter 1, when he falls on his knees in the dust to ask Jesus for healing. It is the language of someone begging from a position of absolute vulnerability. It is also the root of the title Jesus later gives the Holy Spirit, the Paraclete, the advocate who comes alongside you in the dark. That root changes everything about the climax of this parable. The father in this story is the master of a vast estate. He has the legal, cultural, and financial right to order his son into the house under the threat of severe punishment. He could have the servants drag the boy inside, but he refuses to use his authority. He does not issue a command. He makes an appeal. This is not a boss correcting an insubordinate employee. It is a heartbroken parent begging his child to come home. In the first century Mediterranean world, patriarchs did not beg. They dictated. A patriarch begging his own son in the shadows, while the hired hands watch, is an astonishing surrender of power. The father is actively dismantling the older brother's entire religion of slavery. The older brother says, "Doulo, I am a slave." The father responds with, "Parakale, I am coming alongside you." The real question of this parable isn't, will the father forgive the rebel? It is this. The older brother has spent his entire life viewing his father as a strict manager who demands perfect compliance in exchange for a paycheck. But Parakale shatters that economic worldview completely. The father is willingly lowering himself, stripping away his own dignity, to stand in the mud with his bitter, furious son. He looks at the clenched jaw and the stiff shoulders of his firstborn. He listens to the boy boast about his perfect track record. The father is offering the older brother exactly what he offered the younger brother, grace that was never earned. But the tragedy of the older brother is that the very thing keeping him out of the party is the one thing he is most proud of. You set the alarm in the dark. You open the book. You bite your tongue. You drop the check in the plate. You show up when the doors are open. You carry the heavy furniture. You keep the ledger completely clean. You do the grueling work. You build your entire life in the field of moral performance. You expect the payout. You expect the father to notice the sweat on your brow. And then you watch the rebel walk in. The one who vanished. The one who squandered. The one who burned the family name to the ground. You watch them crawl back from the pig pen. And the music starts for them. The heavy wooden doors swing wide. What do you do when obedience makes you bitter? Picture the actual scene where Jesus is speaking. The ring is pushed onto their dirty finger. The finest robe is wrapped around their unwashed shoulders. The grace is handed out with reckless, infuriating speed, and you feel it lock your jaw. You feel the heat rising in your neck. The absolute, burning injustice of unearned mercy. If you have ever felt that sting, you are standing in the dark courtyard. You are holding the pitchfork. You are staring at the lighted windows. You are refusing to go inside. The older brother is not a historical figure. He is a mirror. He is the terrifying reflection of what happens when we reduce the kingdom of heaven to a time clock. You grind through the days. You police the borders of your own morality. You judge the people who do not work as hard as you. You look at the empty chairs in the room and you feel a quiet, dark superiority. You are holding up the roof of the house. You are keeping the whole system running. And it is exhausting. You are tired all the time. Your faith feels like a heavy coat dragging through the mud. There is no music. There is no dancing. There is only the grim, relentless expectation of a wage. We think the younger brother's sin is worse because it makes a mess. He is sitting at a table, eating with tax collectors, with thieves, with the social and religious outcasts of his city. It breaks things. It costs money. But the older brother's sin is infinitely more dangerous because it looks exactly like righteousness. The rebel knows he is starving. The rule keeper thinks he is already full. When you believe your own goodness has bought your ticket, you cannot comprehend a God who gives tickets away at the door. You start tracking the failures of the people around you. You start measuring your own fields. You build an invisible courtroom in your mind. And you put God on the witness stand, demanding he explain why he is blessing the people you despise. Your obedience is not a surrender. It is a strategy. You are trying to put the patriarch in your debt. You are attempting to trap the divine inside a contract of your own making. You think your calloused hands give you leverage over the master of the house. But you cannot manipulate the father with your rebellion, and you cannot manipulate him with your resume. The hardest heart to melt is not the one broken by sin. It is the one hardened by its own perfection. The Father is standing out in the cold with you right now. He is looking at your ledger. He is looking at your flawless attendance record, and you're exhausted. Bitter soul. You can hear the clatter of plates and the loud, unrefined laughter of people who know they do not belong in holy spaces. He is begging you to drop the tools. He is pleading with you to realize that the estate was already yours. But Jesus does not let the tension resolve easily. He leaves the crowd of Pharisees and us staring at a cliffhanger that demands an answer. The Father finishes his plea in the dark. The wind moves through the dry grain of the harvested field. The music from the banquet hall continues to pulse against the heavy wooden doors. But out in the shadows, the patriarch waits for a response. He has just told his eldest boy the ultimate truth of the estate. Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. He does not validate the older brother's ledger, but he does not strip away his inheritance either. He reminds the bitter, exhausted laborer that he has been starving himself while holding the keys to the pantry. He calls him a son, not a slave. And then, Jesus does something entirely unexpected. He stops talking. The story does not end with a resolution. It ends with a provocation. If you read the text in Luke chapter 15, You turn the page expecting the final scene. You expect to read that the older brother drops his tools, embraces his father, and walks into the light to drink the wine. But standing at the edge of the courtyard, just out of the light, is another group, the Pharisees. Or you expect him to turn his back, curse the patriarch, and walk away into the night, becoming the new prodigal. But the text gives you absolutely nothing. The narrative simply cuts to black. Jesus is sitting at the table in first-century Jerusalem, surrounded by the scent of roasted meat and the quiet stares of the Pharisees. The tax collectors have stopped eating. The scribes have stopped whispering. The only sound is the sputtering of the oil lamps in the courtyard. The entire crowd is holding its breath, waiting for the climax of the story. Jesus leaves the older brother suspended in the dark. This is not a mistake in the storytelling. It is a masterclass in confrontation. Jesus refuses to finish the parable because the men standing at the edge of his own dinner party have to write the ending themselves. He is holding up a mirror to the Pharisees, showing them their own clenched jaws and their own meticulous ledgers. He is showing them exactly where they are standing, outside the joy of God. Furious that grace is being handed out to the unqualified, the music is playing right in front of them. The tax collectors and the sinners are sitting at the table, tasting the kingdom of heaven. The scribes, the professional rule keepers, they are watching this dinner party, and their teeth are clenched. The father has already stepped out into the dirt, extending his hands to the religious elite, begging them to drop their scorecards and come inside. Jesus leaves the story open because the door of the house is still open. He is waiting to see what the older brothers will do. A rebel demanded his inheritance and left the property and discovered his freedom was just a pig pen. A compliant son stayed in the fields and worked the soil and built a prison out of his own perfect resume. One boy squandered the family wealth in a distant city, and the other tried to control it in the courtyard. The music started for the brother who broke every law, and the brother who kept every law refused to listen. One son was utterly lost in a foreign country, and the other was completely lost in his own living room. The patriarch ran down a public road to kiss a returning rebel and sacrificed his cultural dignity to do it. The same patriarch walked into the cold dirt to beg a bitter slave and prove that his grace cannot be earned by anyone. Two brothers, two rebellions, one open door. But here is the part I keep coming back to. They are whispering among themselves, disgusted that this rabbi welcomes sinners. Jesus hears the whispering. He does not. The father stepping away from the head of the table. He leaves the warmth. He leaves the fatted calf and the torches and the guests, just to stand in the freezing night air with a boy who is actively insulting him. He leaves the celebration for a son whose calloused hands are clutching a scorecard. A son who looks at a loving patriarch and only sees a sweatshop manager. If you are in a season where your religion feels like an exhausting shift in the fields, where you are tracking your good deeds and waiting for a payout that never seems to arrive, you are holding a ledger the Father tore up a long time ago. You do not have to work the soil to buy His love. You do not have to leverage your obedience to secure your place in the house. The tools are heavy, and the night is cold. And may the God who has never once asked you to earn your inheritance walk out into whatever field you are working, take the heavy ledger from your hands, and finally lead you inside to the feast. He can hear the thumping rhythm of dancing, feet bleeding through the thick wooden doors of his own father's estate, turn around and argue with them. He simply begins to tell a story about a father and two boys. The man standing outside the house in the story has kept his ledger perfectly balanced. He has guarded the family name. He has swallowed his own desires. The dirt under his fingernails is a badge of absolute, unwavering loyalty. He has done everything exactly right. And yet, when the music starts, he is the one choosing to stand in the outer darkness. To understand why this matters, to feel the absolute shock of this narrative in first-century Palestine, you cannot start with the boy in the pig pen. You have to step into the cultural worldview of the men who heard this story first. Dust coats the older brother's sandals as he walks the perimeter of the estate. He checks the fences, counts the livestock, and measures the harvest against the ledgers, ensuring not a single grain is unaccounted for. In the ancient Near East, a family's wealth was not a liquid asset sitting in a vault. It was the soil beneath their feet. It was the heavy breathing of animals in the pens. It was the physical, bleeding, sweating reality of the estate itself. When the younger brother demanded his share of the inheritance, the scent of roasted, fattened calf drifts past him on the evening air. The servants are rushing past with wine. He was essentially handing his father a death sentence. He was looking the patriarch in the eye and saying, "I prefer your wealth to your presence. I wish you were already dead." The community would have expected the father to strike the boy across the face. They would have expected the older brother, the protector of the estate, the designated guardian of the family honor, to step in and violently refuse the request. Instead, the father quietly divides his livelihood. He liquidates a portion of the land. He stands in the dirt and watches his younger son pack his bags and walk away toward a foreign skyline. The younger brother's lostness is loud. It is the sharp stench of cheap wine and the thick mud of a Gentile pig trough. It is the kind of ruin that everyone can clearly see. The kind that leaves physical scars and empty coin purses. When religion talks about being lost, this is usually the only picture we paint. The spectacular flameout, the dramatic exit, but Jesus is looking right at a crowd of religious leaders who have never touched a pig, who have never tasted foreign wine, who meticulously tithe their mint and cumin, and he is introducing a terrifying new category. He is revealing that you do not. The entire house is vibrating with a joy he was not invited to prepare. He has not dropped his tools. You have to leave the property to be completely alienated from the father. This is not a story about one lost son. It is a story about two. The older brother stayed on the property. He worked the soil until his hands were calloused. He kept his robes clean and his public reputation spotless. Yet, his heart is 1,000 miles away from the character of the patriarch. He is orbiting the father's house, but he is completely deaf to its rhythm. The younger brother was lost in the far country, but the older brother is lost in the living room. His obedience is not a submission to the father's heart. It is a strategy to control the father's wealth. But the absolute depth of his detachment does not become visible during the long, boring days of agricultural labor. It only reveals itself when the sun finally goes down. When the quiet estate suddenly erupts into a noise the older brother cannot comprehend. The sun dips below the horizon. The workday finally ends. The older brother wipes the dust from his neck. He begins the long walk back to the main house. His muscles burn, his boots drag in the gravel. He is expecting the quiet. He is expecting the predictable, silent rhythm of a disciplined and serious home. Instead, he hears it, the sharp strike of a tambourine. He has not gone inside, and he is furious. You probably know this story. Everyone knows this story. The high, piercing trill of a flute. The heavy, rhythmic stomping of dozens of sandals on the courtyard stones. He stops walking. He sees torches throwing wild shadows against the walls. He smells the rich, heavy smoke of roasting meat. The fatted calf, the specific animal kept in the stall, fed by hand, reserved only for high holy days or the arrival of kings. He does not run to the door. He does not rush into the light to see what the joy is about. He pulls back into the darkness. He catches a young servant rushing past with a clay jar of wine. He grabs him by the sleeve. He asks a single, guarded question. "What is this?" The servant is breathless. He is glowing with the news. He blurts out the sentence that should make a sibling drop to his knees and weep with relief. "Your brother has come. Your father has killed the fattened calf. He is safe. He is whole." The servant points to the open doors. The music swells. He waits for the older brother to smile, to laugh, to run inside. The smile never comes. The older brother releases the boy's arm. He clenches his fists. The blood rushes to his face, hot and violent. The text says he was angry, but this is not a flash of sibling annoyance. This is a deep, seismic rage. He refuses to cross the threshold. It is arguably the most famous short story ever told. The rebel younger son who demands his inheritance early. He has worked the fields. He has kept the rules. He has protected the borders. He expects compensation. He expects recognition. He expects his sweat to be the exact currency that buys his father's favor. The unearned mercy given to the younger brother feels like a theft from his own pocket. This is not sibling rivalry. It is spiritual economics. Grace is not a gift to him. It is a violation of his contract. In the ancient Middle East, a banquet is not just a meal. It is a public validation. It is a social covenant. The host relies on his eldest son to serve as the co-host, to circulate among the guests, to pour the wine, to protect the family honor. For the eldest son to boycott his own father's party is a catastrophic public insult. He is shaming the patriarch in front of the entire village. He is standing outside in the dirt, actively protesting the grace that is flowing freely inside. He demands a ledger. He demands that the boy in the pig pen get exactly what the pig pen pays. He listens to the laughter of the brother who squandered half the estate. He listens to the singing of the father who just threw the other half away on a party, wastes it in a distant country, and comes crawling home in disgrace to a patriarch who runs down a dirt road to meet him. The older brother does not hate the sin. He hates the mercy. But the absolute tragedy of his condition is not just his refusal to dance. The true disease is buried in the exact vocabulary he uses when his father finally comes outside to find him. The father steps out of the light of the banquet hall and into the cool evening air. He finds his eldest son standing near the edge of the property, arms crossed, face hardened in the darkness. The father doesn't yell. He doesn't command him to get inside. But when the older brother finally opens his mouth, his first words expose a devastating secret. Luke, chapter 15, verse 19. The older brother looks at the man who gave him life and says, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command." The word the older brother uses for served here is the Greek douloo. It does not mean to assist. It does not mean to work alongside as a partner or a son. It means to be a slave. It means to render the absolute, submissive bondage of a servant to a master. It appears frequently in the New Testament to describe literal slavery, and its root is doulos, a bondservant, who owns nothing, who has no rights, and who works purely out of duty and fear of punishment. That root changes everything. We call it the parable of the prodigal son. Most people assume the younger brother is the entire point. The older brother is not describing a relationship. He is describing a sentence. For decades, he has been waking up early, plowing the rows, and harvesting the grain. But he wasn't doing it because he loved the father. He was doing it because he felt trapped by the contract. His obedience is not an act of worship. It is the heavy, exhausting labor of a slave trying to earn his freedom. If something about this older brother's frustration is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the older brother stands in the dark, spitting his record into his father's face. He lists his years of flawless performance. He brags about his unbroken record of compliance. He is not speaking the language of family. He is speaking the language of a bitter employee who has been passed over for a promotion. He looks at his father and sees a boss. He looks at his home and sees a sweatshop. The younger brother's sin was that he wanted the father's money and hated his rules. The older brother's tragedy is that he wants the father's money and obeys the rules only to get it. Both sons hated the father. Both sons wanted the property. One tried to get it by breaking every law. We read it as a comforting narrative about grace, a warm assurance that heaven welcomes back the worst of wanderers. The other tried to get it by keeping every law. The older brother is not righteous. He is just compliant. He is trapped in a prison, made of his own good behavior, waiting for a payout that he believes he has rightfully earned. He cannot rejoice in his brother's rescue, because he has completely miscalculated the nature of the house he lives in. He thinks the father's love is something you buy with a shovel, and when he sees that love given away for free, his entire economic universe collapses into dust. The guests are eating. The wine is pouring. The fatted calf is being carved. The older brother stands outside. He crosses his arms. He refuses to enter. He expects his absence to ruin the night. He expects the patriarch to stay at the head of the table, to send a servant with a message, to issue a strict, legal command, forcing his attendance. But the door opens. The yellow torchlight spills into the dirt. The music flares out into the courtyard, then muffles abruptly as the heavy wood closes. The father steps into the cold night air. He leaves the guests. He leaves the feast. He leaves his place of honor. In the ancient Middle East, the host does not leave the banquet. To abandon the head of the table is to lose face. To walk out on your own invited guests is a profound public humiliation.